Tonight, searching for answers. Sylvester Stallone's family is understandably still reeling from the sudden death of Sly's 36-year-old son, Sage. And tonight, there's a brand new report from TMZ that says Sly has now hired a private investigator to help find out what led to this awful tragedy. Joining me in New York, criminal defense attorney Midwin Charles. From Hollywood tonight, it's chief news correspondent for E, Ken Baker. So the L.A. Police Department is telling Showbiz tonight the investigation into Sage's death is still ongoing, but there were no signs of forced entry. Midwin, from your perspective as an attorney, why would somebody bring in a private investigator at this point when you have an investigation still underway and the police are obviously still doing their job?
Right. Well, as you can imagine, a family going through this is dealing with a lot. And one of the things that they want is answers. You're right. There's an investigation going on. However, it's an investigation being carried on by the state with limited resources. There's only so much they can do, and there's only so much time they can devote to this one case. So by hiring a private investigator, what they do is they assure that all hands are on deck and that someone is being paid to do this particular job and look into the death of this young man and do it at no cost.
Obviously,
at all costs.
Well, at all costs.
At all costs.
And to that point, obviously, Sly Stallone is a person of means.
Right.
Is this pretty typical for this kind of a case when you're dealing with a wealthy person who can afford to hire somebody to perhaps do a little legwork? Absolutely.
Very typical. Whenever you have someone who has died, there are always going to be questions that surrounds that death, especially if it isn't a natural death. This is a young guy, you know, someone at the age of 36 typically doesn't die. And so what they are doing by hiring a private investigator is to look into who was the last person who saw him alive, what was he doing, what was he involved in, and all those kinds of questions that they have that they can hopefully get answers to.
Ken, I want to get to you on this. You know, Sly, obviously grief-stricken, understandably having a very difficult time dealing with all this. What do you make of the report that Sly is taking the investigation into his own hands? I mean, knowing Sly, does this surprise you in any way?
Well, he may be involved in some way with helping this investigation with some sort of private work, but we actually this just came in. We just spoke to a rep for Stallone who said that that report that he's hired that particular private investigator is false. So that's not to say that there might not be something else going on, but that's just the latest from this newsroom. But what I can say is that he is grief-stricken, like you said. This has been very, very hard on him. They've been very public about saying that. We have not seen Sly since this all went down. We've been told there's a funeral in the works in the next few days. Perhaps we will get our first public glimpse of him at that point. But this was his eldest son. They were very close. This is just totally devastating, understandably, for him.
And then when Sly has reportedly hired a very high-profile investigator who's worked on these types of cases before, I have to imagine the police will be very happy to hear about whatever they may learn.
Of course. I mean, I don't think that Sylvester Stallone is doing this to kind of one-up police investigators. He's hoping to, at least that's my guess, to hire a private investigator so that private investigator can work in concert with the investigators so that basically you have more people, more hands on deck.
They could work hand in hand. All right, Midwin Charles, Ken Baker, thank you so much.